Orders of the day number 4, budget estimates and related papers. I call the Minister.
Before I start on the taking note of the budget, can I also express my condolences to Danny and Elise in the gallery and on the tragic death of Joe, as the Minister for Health has just so eloquently said. None of us can imagine the heartache and heartbreak that you feel from the tragedy that you've seen. And our thoughts are with you, everyone in the House. I'm rising to speak today on the take note of last year's budget, and it may seem like quite a while since we had that budget, and there it is. It is a length of time in between that budget and now, which I think enables us as local members to be able to have a look at some of the things which we announced in the budget, and also to report a little bit on the progress on some of those for our electorates. So I'm really pleased to have this brief opportunity of a couple of minutes to start my contribution on this. Whether or not I get to use the whole length of time in the longer term will remains to be seen. So in the short time that I do have available to do this, I just wanted to highlight the fact that this budget last year announced some really important things for the schools in Monaro, which were progress on election commitments that I made at the last election. Those commitments included the commencements, the commitments and funding for the Googong High School, for the Jerrabomberra Stage 2, a new announcement in last year's budget for Stage 2 of the Googong Public School, and also the enabling us to continue to fix what at that stage was still the National Party's Bungendore High School debacle. Now, we've made really good progress on a number of those things, and I just wanted to really quick highlight those in the time I have available today, and possibly one day in the future I'll get to continue my remarks. But Googong High School, since the announcement of funding for the project, is now out for public comment on the plan, and there is a tender out for design and construct of that high school. It's really important. That's a 700 student high school in the fastest growing part, one of the fastest growing areas of regional New South Wales actually. It's currently a population of 17,000, expected to be 30,000 in a few years' time. So that high school is 700 students as part of an ultimate plan for 2,000 students, a high school which will be there in time for many of those students to finish at the Googong Public School, and a project which is on a site reserved for it, an easy to build on site without a lot of problems, which is wonderful, but also enabling us to get a facility which is going to cater for the future growth needs of Googong. And it was a commitment that I made in the 2023 election, and which I'm really pleased to see underway with a completion date, an opening date, Day 1, Term 1, 2027. That's a fairly fast time frame, but on a site with which I think is very suitable, it should be achievable. The other one to really highlight quickly is that Bungendore High School is also progressing. Currently the plans for Bungendore High School are also out for comment, and again the same tender process is underway. This is on a completely different site to the one which was announced by the previous government and which caused incredible division in the community. Really quite vitriolic and awful debate at times, because the previous government didn't bother to consult on the site before they announced it. So
Minister,
as a result...
Sorry to interrupt.
Deputy Speaker, it's a pleasure to be able to continue my remarks on the budget, which I commenced, I can't even remember when, a few weeks ago. But I know that I know the member for Cessnock has been waiting with bated breath for me to continue my remarks on the budget, and I am very pleased to be able to do that. It's been quite a while since the last budget, and obviously the Parliament's been quite busy with government legislation, so there's not many speakers who've had the opportunity to actually speak on the Take Note debate. I'm very pleased that I'm one of the few who has got to speak on the Take Note debate, and to highlight the very positive budget measures from last year, and now with the expiry of time, some of the progress on those budget measures between now and between the budget and now in the Monaro electorate. Before I go specifically onto some of those things for Monaro, I really want to highlight some of those broader elements which have been so important and such a differentiation between the Minns Labor government and the previous coalition government and the way that they affect communities like the one that I represent from Monaro. And that really highlights in the area of service delivery. When I ran again for the seat of Monaro, I had parents, kids and teachers talking to me regularly about their children being stuck in playgrounds or in halls because there was no teachers available for their classes, about the exodus of teachers going across into the ACT. And I know other members in this place who have border communities would understand the draw for many people of their skilled workers going across into other states if the differential in pay exists. And that's what was happening in the teaching space. So ACT teachers at that stage were being paid a lot more than New South Wales teachers, because New South Wales teachers, like our paramedics, police, our nurses and a range of other essential workers, had been subject to that wage cap from the previous government. So we went to the election very clearly saying that our first priority was to lift that and to put the resources in to make sure that when people went to access a New South Wales government service, they didn't just find a nice building, maybe one where a National Party member had got out and cut a ribbon or opened a shiny building. They actually found a person inside there to deliver the service. And that is really the core of the campaign that I ran in Monaro. My opponent at the time, who's now in the other place, my opponent at the time just wouldn't acknowledge that that was even an issue. And I was consistently getting this from people. So I'm really pleased that out of last year's budget and the Minns government's priority since we came in, we have had pay rises for some of our areas, which have allowed our essential services workers to start catching up and getting ahead of inflation at last. So teachers, paramedics, police have all got really important salary increases. I acknowledge that there is still a process to go through with nurses, and that is an issue which concerns nurses. But and that will be going to the independent umpire will be looking at that. And again, that's something that Labor restored, being able to go to the independent umpire and not just having a flat wages cap, because we know that for our nurses, at one stage, one of the years during the pandemic, the previous government gave them a 0.3% increase, just an offensive amount for people who worked so hard and so diligently during the pandemic. And this government already has provided 2 increases, including the interim increase, while the 3-year deal is being considered by the independent umpire. The other important thing which we saw from this government, which is 500 additional paramedics, and I just want to put on record for my good friend, the Minister for Health, I want some of them. And we have had a discussion. I'm really pleased that the Minister and I and the ambulance service had a discussion just in the last few weeks around the needs in the Monaro electorate, and that's something which I'm really pleased to have that access to the Minister and his team to be able to do. I want to address specifically some of the areas and some of the budget initiatives which have been working for Monaro, and where we are still starting to see some great results from this government delivering for our region. And I'll start in Bombala, where one of my key election promises was to expand the hospital. I did this on the background of some important work that I will acknowledge Bronnie Taylor for having been involved in. She had been involved in identifying the need for an expansion of the service in Bombala with the support of the community. But what unfortunately the Nationals did at that election was, rather than actually promising the full amount for the capital, they said, oh, we'll promise a little bit of it if Christy McBain, our wonderful federal member, re-elected on the weekend, and the federal government toss in the rest. Now, that was not going to work because it was our responsibility to do it. And I accepted that responsibility and got a commitment to the money that was needed to go into the multi-purpose service, recognising that then we had a joint responsibility with the Commonwealth, who would be then funding the aged care beds in it. And I've been really thrilled to work with Christy about that, and that funding was confirmed in last year's budget, and a really important initiative that's now at the stage of being planned. The contract's been signed for planning and delivery of the service, and I'm thrilled to say that the latest information I've got is that we'll be planning for that service with the additional beds, and we'll also be including, as my understanding, some key worker accommodation, which is very important for the area. That initiative for the hospital goes really well with the Caruana reopening, which I funded, which the government funded, through the funding which we promised for the Caruana. And I apologise to the House because I've just misled you on an element of that. Caruana was the one where where the Nationals only promised half of it, and the Labor government was able to come in with the other half. But I do congratulate Keith and his team at Caruana for their work in that. Goes well with Bombala having the funding in the last budget to finish off the work on their new water treatment plant, which has switched on this year. In Jindabyne, we've seen $47 million extra to ensure that the two new schools, the primary school and the high school, were able to open. Bizarrely, those projects which were underway when I came in, but they didn't have the funding to actually build the roads to get to the school. So I had this odd call, an email from the PNC prior to last year's budget saying, we're not going to be able to get the school open as promised next year because there won't be a road and the electricity won't be connected and there won't be a footpath because they hadn't been funded. So last year's budget provided $47 million extra to make sure those things happened, and I was pleased to get the assistance of Tara Moriarty, Minister for Regional New South Wales, in getting that done. Pleased to say that since then we've also seen the start of work on the Clay Pits car park, on the planning for the water and sewerage in Jindabyne. We've funded out of the funds that were made available the purchase of land for a mountain bike park, for future land for housing and for future road reserved. And in recent weeks, I know that finalisation has been happening of a land swap to enable the construction of a new ambulance station. So another key thing that's been happening there is that I've been doing a lot of work with the Minister for Planning to try and sort out the very cumbersome and difficult planning system that affects our alpine resorts. In Cooma, we saw the budget provide the funding, and we just recently opened 12 key worker accommodation units, which is really important for that area, an area where, particularly since Snowy 2.0 has been happening, has had some real housing shortages in the area. And it is something which I felt was very important when I took back on the job of being member for Monaro. Those key worker units are just the start of the work that's going on, though, in housing in Cooma. And I was really pleased, again, with my friend Christy McBain, the federal member for Eden Monaro, to recently be able to announce the start of work on 120 new blocks of housing land at Cooma East. That's been something which needed quite a bit of work and negotiation when we came to government, and also needed the funding for the infrastructure, and the federal government, through its housing funds, has provided the funding for the infrastructure. The New South Wales government will be developing those blocks of land, and as part of that, and the agreement with commercial developers, we will then be funding new social housing for Cooma. First time we've seen social housing construction happening there in some years. We'll be funding more key worker accommodation and also aged persons units. So some really important infrastructure for the town of Cooma, where we have seen that housing crisis that used to really only affect Queanbeyan in our region, but now has spread out to so many of our regional communities. I know that's a case in many other regional communities across New South Wales. We've seen continued investment in Monaro highway upgrades, including most recent work in the section of the Monaro Highway between Nimidabel and the Snowy Mountains Highway turnoff in our region. That's widening work and safety work to make sure that there is safe areas, runoff areas and rails and so on. Also pleased to have seen in last year's budget the allocation of the funds that went to Smiths Road. Smiths Road is, its residents would probably say they are often forgotten. It's an interesting little area. It's on the ACT side. It's wedged really in between the ACT and the Murrumbidgee River, and you access it through the ACT, but it's in New South Wales and it's in the snowy Monaro Shire. So they've felt a bit left out over years gone by and had been lobbying for a long time for funding for their road to be sealed. And I'm pleased that we're able to provide that, and that contractors have just recently been on site getting underway, something which is a great reward for the wonderful community in that area who've been working so hard on that.
Member for Terrigal Rosen.
State of the House.
Oh, that's not very nice.
Minister has asked for an extension of time. Is leave granted? Yes, thank you. Only
Very
up
much,
until 4
Speaker,
o'clock.
and you know, I could actually spend so long talking about all the great things the government's doing in Monaro, and I'm going to have to really go a bit faster now, unfortunately. But I've talked about what's happening in Cooma, Smiths Road there. I did want to talk about the northern end of the electorate, particularly some of the great work that's going in from this budget on things like the road improvements. We've got plans which have been out for public comment on the long-awaited spotlight intersection on Bungendore Road and Yellerton Drive. That's a really important road safety improvement for our area, and I've been pleased to see the public consultation on that, but my message to Transport for New South Wales is get on and build it, because that's really highly needed there. Safer pedestrian crossings, safer bike crossings, and also far less queuing that would affect the residents of Googong, particularly coming through and commuting into Canberra for their work. We've seen some investment as well from that last budget in our promise to upgrade Nerriga Road and complete the sealing, $10 million, on a number of bridges in the Braidwood area, Braidwood-Bungendore area, Reshies Creek Bridge, the Briars Sharrow Bridge, Charleong Bridge near Nerriga, which is just on the northern boundary of the electorate, and of course a number of other road improvements around the Cooma area, areas like Berwick near Berridale, Cowbed Creek Bridge. There's a lot of work that's going on, and that's been very positive. In Bungendore, we've seen an allocation of funding to the very long-awaited and very badly botched by the Coalition when they were in government, Bungendore High School project. Now, I've talked in this place before about the Bungendore High School project, a location which was announced by the former member for Monaro, former Deputy Premier, and when he announced it, he said, and I quote, "This is going to come as a surprise." Now, that's probably not what you want when you're announcing a significant bit of infrastructure. You don't want it to be a surprise to the community, but the result of that surprise was that it got bogged down in court challenge after court challenge for years, and with the great support from the Deputy Premier, we've now been able to resolve that. It did take a while, and I recognise the hurt and division that it caused in the community, but we've now got a site, a new site for that school. Wonderful site. It's a bigger site. It'll cater for a much larger student population and set the community up for years to come with this wonderful high school that we'll be building on the site, and it'll be ready day 1, 2027. Similarly, the new high school in Googong, left out by the former Coalition government, but the new high school in Googong, day 1, 2027, funds allocated in the budget. Planning's been out for public consultation, catering for 700 kids initially, but with a capacity for 2,000 in the longer term. Really important infrastructure for that community. Stage 2 of the public school in Googong, again, built too small by the Coalition, and it's only a couple of years old, but it's already overflowing, it's got demountables, and we're building stage 2 on that site. Unfortunately, a bit of a limited site. Again, probably should have started on the second site that there is for a public school in the area, but a bit of a limited site, so there's some work going on to try and resolve that and make sure that we can actually get that school built. We've got stage 2 of the Jerrabomberra High School, promised by Labor, be delivered by day 1, 2027. Again, really important. And I was really pleased to actually go to Jerrabomberra Public School the other day, a school that I was at the opening of way back in my early days of being in this place 22 years ago. And that school had lost its playground for a couple of years because in order to try and meet their election promise of having a high school opened before the last election, the Coalition decided to put a demountable high school on the playground for the primary school. That's been a real burden for the school for quite a while, but I really congratulate Chris Hunter, the principal, and her team, and particularly the P&C at Jerrabomba Public School, because they've done an absolutely wonderful job of bringing that playground back to life now that the high school is in a permanent building, and creating a wonderful bush area complete with yarning circles and a whole range of other wonderful elements for their students on their new playground. And it was lovely to be at the opening of that just recently. Housing is the final thing I really want to talk about, because when I came back in as member for Monaro, the one thing that was absolutely clear was that the Nationals just didn't give a damn about the housing shortage in our area, and particularly in social housing. We had no development of new social housing. We'd seen sell-offs of social housing in the area, but really it went back to when I was the member for the area in a Labor government was the last time we'd seen new developments. We'd seen sell-off of blocks from the opposition from when they were in government, and no new housing. I'm really pleased to say that's starting to turn around. We saw federal Labor fund some new housing in conjunction with Carabar Housing recently, and I've been in close contact with Rose Jackson and her people, and I'm really pleased to see that there is 2 new blocks of multiple developments about to go ahead in Queanbeyan.
Apologise.